this is just like a ridiculous move from all of these companies. I know why they're doing it. It's because they can make a lot more money by getting the users onto the platform. It's a lot easier to show ads. It's a lot easier to get them on, like, Reddit Premium. And for the apps that do want to run, you charge a ridiculous amount of money. So if they actually do have the ability to pay for it, then you make a lot more money from the users as well. I think Twitter is only like a part of this. Obviously, Twitter is what opened the floodgates, but I think the bigger part is the fact that a lot of these companies are making way less money than they did at the peak of COVID. Like, all of these companies are way higher than they were prior to COVID, but, when you go from, say, your peak is here, right? Your COVID peak is here. Prior to COVID, you're about here, right? And now you're here. Actually, prior to COVID, you're here. This is a bad example for the audio listeners. What I'm saying, right, is you're higher than you were prior COVID, you're lower than you were at your peak. There we go. So a lot of these companies are trying to find ways to bring that revenue back up to where it was, because, you can never have a bad year. Every year has to be a growth year. And I know Reddit isn't public right now, but, like, even so, you still have people in the company that want the company to make more and more and more money. And I wouldn't be surprised if these sort of changes start happening on other platforms as well. I wouldn't be surprised if, like, YouTube starts doing it with their API. I wouldn't be surprised if they start doing some weird stuff and, like, trying to break YouTube DL. I'm surprised they haven't, like, really, really tried hard on that. I wouldn't be surprised if, like, Meta starts introducing more, like, crazy API pricing. I don't know. Like, the entire point here is, like, I think we are getting to the end of APIs, like, not the end of APIs, but, like, the new golden age of APIs. Like, the original golden age was when APIs were first being made public. Like, in those very, very early days in the 90s and early 2000s, there were a lot of services that just had their APIs public and they were just free. And people were just pinging them constantly over and over and over again. That was the actual golden age. Nowadays, though, you have a more, what do you call it? Sustainable model where you charge for the API, but you still have a free tier, and the API charge, like, isn't that crazy, Maybe you pay a couple $100 a year for, like, a really big application. Or you have a sliding scale like AWS. But I think we're getting to the point where a lot of third-party applications are just... A lot of third-party API, a lot of, like, these third-party things are just going to go by the wayside. Because if this doesn't change with Reddit, now you have two massive platforms that have made it acceptable to have crazy API pricing. And when you have that, then you're going to have a third and a fourth and a fifth, and you're going to get to a point where it's just industry standard to have API pricing that's absolutely ridiculous, and third-party services just cannot exist. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope that a lot of this stuff gets reverted and we go back to a point where APIs actually are functional and you can, use them. But I don't expect it to happen. And I wouldn't hold my breath for it happening either. Seems like you just accept that, like, yeah, it's just broken now. It's never coming back, and yeah. But I don't know, man. I don't know.